Hello and welcome to Better Tech. I'm Jocelyn Houle. We're super excited to welcome Hanno Basse today from Digital Domain, but you also have a long history outside of Digital Domain. I'd love to start with an introduction. Let us know a little bit more about your background.
Sure, yeah. I've been in the entertainment industry for about 30 years now. I'm originally from Germany. Right now, I'm working at Digital Domain. I'm the CTO for the company here. Digital Domain is a visual effects studio. We work with all the major studios here, with Marvel, with Lucasfilm, with Netflix, Sony Pictures, Warner Brothers, Amazon Studios, you name them. They're all clients of ours, and we create, like I said, visual effects. And what we're especially known for is our digital human technology. Digital characters and digital doubles of real human actors and stuff like that. For Digital Domain, I was at Microsoft for a couple of years. I worked in their Azure cloud business, helping them to build a media and entertainment practice, try to figure out how to do content production in the cloud. And before then, I was the CTO at 20th Century Fox, one of the major 6 studios at the time. That was a lot of fun to work there. And, there I worked on all things related to technology, distribution, theatrical, home entertainment, but also production and, innovation, especially in production and distribution.
I've got so many questions. My background is really a technology and data, and so
Oh,
I was doing some light stalking, and I saw your background at 20th Century Fox, and just the data interactions across all of those domains as a CTO is just
yeah.
a mountain of interaction, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, and it's a very intricate business model, which actually has been changing quite a bit since, the advent of streaming, right? I mean, when I started working at Fox, we had the classic, Hollywood studio, distribution kind of supply chain almost, where the first window was theatrical, then you had your home entertainment uh, buy window where you could buy DVDs and Blu-ray discs and stuff like that. And you had your rental window, and then you had your licensing windows, first premium with like HBO and Showtime and those premium channels, and then you went into licensing to broadcasters, television channels. And that has obviously changed dramatically. It simplified it a little bit, I think, in some ways, but at the same time, also the monetization of content has really changed. It's more challenging now than it used to be.
What would you say are like the really big pillars of those changes when you think about the big tectonic plates that have moved?
I think the big tectonic plate that has moved is uh, basically that this content is available very early now in its life cycle in a subscription service.
Okay.
That has really changed because, like I said before, theatrical distribution, several home entertainment windows, which are all transactional, sort of per view, per disc sale, or per disc rental. There's a fee that the studio gets. That's kind of disappeared. We go from theatrical directly into streaming,
Hmm.
and this the streaming revenue is no longer per view or per transaction. It's an all you can eat buffet, right? Subscribers pay the monthly fee, and it doesn't matter whether they watch one movie or they watch 20 movies and 10 TV shows. The
Yeah.
ARPU, or the average revenue per subscriber, is still the same. And so
So
that's really changed, the amount of revenue that the studio would get back on a per view or per transaction basis.
so the whole business model changed, and a lot of
Yeah.
that is also just compressing the velocity, right, for
Yeah.
production. And one of the things I think that I wanted to ask you about is, so many organizations like yours, they were already doing AI, they were already doing
Yeah.
really complex stuff. Help me understand, in this like high velocity new business model,
Mhm.
in the last year, we've heard a lot about generative AI and safe adoption of AI, privacy concerns. There's a whole package of future looking stuff. But can we
Yeah.
start with like today?
Hmm.
How are you using like real life AI and data today for your business?
Yeah. So like we said, So at Digital Domain here, we've been using machine learning for quite a while now, for like 6, 7 years now. This started with Avengers Infinity War. I want to say that's 2016 or 17, something like that, where we created a character called Thanos, portrayed by Josh Brolin. And they wanted, the producers wanted a new way of capturing him. We had done digital humans before that started with Benjamin Button, the
Hmm.
curious case of Benjamin Button in 2006, 2007, that kind of time frame. And it takes a couple of years to make movies like that. And so they are basically the performance where we used the digital version of Brad Pitt that was all captured separately on a soundstage in a very special capture environment, and then we stitched that into the final shot after the fact. The difference of the new approach with Thanos and Avengers Infinity War was they wanted Josh Brolin on set with the rest of the characters, with the rest of the actors, and wanted him to interact and be directly in the moment. So they wanted him on set. And what we needed to do there was we needed to have a way to capture his performance as he's interacting with the other actors and do it in a way that we could actually reuse it later, and transfer his performance as a human being onto this
Into some.
visual asset that we had.
Hmm.
We had created the 3D geometry, obviously, of Thanos's head, and he doesn't look anything like a real human being. But even with that model, you can kind of see that it is Josh Brolin. But the reason why you really can tell it's Josh Brolin is because the performance actually comes through.
Yeah.
That Thanos
Right.
behaves like, you've seen, Josh Brolin behave before. And so what we did was we took in our studio, we had Josh come in and had him do a bunch of different crazy, facial expressions, and had him say a number of, totally nonsensical sentences and stuff. But what we were really looking for is get as wide a range of his facial expressions as possible. That was the fundamental thing. And we loaded all that into a machine learning model. And what that basically did was the machine learning model ended up understanding how Josh Brolin deforms his face.
But like in real detail for every
In,
little
in-
minute.
yeah, in real detail. And so so what we're doing now is we're basically taking the performance uh, of, that we capture on set. That's when he's got this helmet camera on, he's got dots on his face. And we're using that basically to track how his face deforms as he
Hmm.
has different facial expressions. And then basically what happens afterwards when we've got that captured, that deformation data basically is looked at, is used as input data into this machine learning model that we captured ahead of
Like the
time.
baseline training. It's the
And
training
it's
package.
basically it's a lookup function almost, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
much more powerful. And then we know, okay, now we know how to deform that 3D geometry that we built for Thanos's
Yeah.
face, Thanos's head. And so that was like the first kind of foray into this, and it worked. And we've been using it on many different productions since then. The actors like it because they're part of the
Right.
part of the action. They get to interact directly with their fellow actors, with the other characters. So it makes it a lot more fluent, performance. The director loves it. Everybody does because the editor, because you know what then happens in post-production is you have a shot of, let's say, Josh Brolin performing this, and as an editor, for example, so you already have a rough version of the shot. Your camera is already set, your in and out points you can already select. And so from when studios, for example, what they want to do is they want to, as early as possible, they want to see a first cut of their movie. Because they
Right.
want to know, do they actually have a movie? Is this going to work? Are we going to be able to sell and market and sell this thing? Are people going to come and watch this? And so the earlier they can see it, the better. And that's what this technology did. Because you had a shot. It looked like still like the character still looked like Josh Brolin and didn't look like Thanos yet,
Yeah.
but you have already the performance there and the interaction with the other actors. So there was really a a profound qualitative change.
So right now today, you're able to come in and sort of help advance both the technology and the art form, right? Because
Yeah,
people can work together in a way they
yeah,
hadn't been before.
yeah,
And then just operationally, you're helping editors, you're helping production just
yeah,
get going faster because the shot's
yeah,
already there. And then the
yeah,
last thing, right, is that the business is boosted forward because they can get their early indicators ahead of time, their marketing indicators faster, which you just said
yeah,
going
yeah,
fast is the important
yes,
thing, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
all of that's coming together today in what you offer. And I did really think Josh Brolin's performance was amazing, kind of made it.
And by the way, I mean we do show, clips from that performance still today in our presentations and reels, and there's shots in there where the performance is actually very subtle, right? Like Thanos is this superior being, stronger than anybody else, and sometimes he has just a very soft smirk or just a really slight smile, kind of that brings that across. Actually, in fact, when we captured him at the time, when we did the data collection, he in the beginning thought that he had to overact like a theatrical actor. So, theatrical
Mhm.
actors overact so that the people in the back row still see what the performance is. And he thought he had to do the same thing because he thought he's going to be under these layers of digital makeup,
Right.
so to speak. But no, I mean, this technology really changed all that so that he could be very subtle, and very detailed in his performance, and it would come still through. That's why I'm saying his personality comes through.
Let me
Totally.
ask you this. So that's really helpful to set the background of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. I want
Yeah.
to ask first technically and then from a business perspective. From a technical perspective, what's special about an organization? Why would I come to Digital Domain? If I'm a studio, would I say like, oh, I'm going to build this capability myself? Like what technically are the kind of key inputs to being successful at what you're doing?
Uh,
like
d-
like a lot of compute, a lot of software developers. What makes what are the key kind of technical inputs?
Well, okay, so I don't know how much time we have because that may be a longer discussion, but
We'll do two shows. It's about a half an hour, so yeah. But it's interesting. Like,
okay, no,
what
no,
are
no,
those
no, because
capabilities?
I'm trying to figure out how to give you an answer that doesn't meander into a thousand different things. I mean,
I'm
and
very direct.
also,
I'll help you. I'll cut you off.
okay, cool, that's fine. And because also I think and actually with the help of AI and machine learning, the technology is changing very rapidly. But in a classic sense, there's a classic visual effects workflow or pipeline, as we call it, right? And there's tools that you use throughout that process. It's a very labor intensive process still today. So, um, the vast majority of our cost of goods sold is artist labor.
Hmm,
And,
I didn't know that.
and,
That's interesting.
and then it's also, infrastructure and compute power and all that sort of thing, but that's by a mile the second line item, not the biggest line item in the bill. And but yeah, you have to create this pipeline because it's artists with varying disciplines. So you have modeling artists, for example. What they do is they just create the geometry of what you want to present. And if it's a character, then let's say a human being or something, somebody just creates the 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 um, the gray outline basically of this character. That's called the model. It's and then that model, in order for it to be moving, so that an animator can actually make it move, it has to be rigged. That's what the term is. And so that's basically you give it um, something like a skeleton, but it's not just
Mhm.
a skeleton. It's a skeleton with levers and
It's
all
smart. It's
other
sort of smart
parameters
about all the ways of
so
movement.
that, for example, if I move my arm like this, it's not just that, my wrist and my elbow and my shoulder joint need to move in unison, but it's also the geometry on top of it, my skin, my muscles, they all have to deform in the right way.
Is that the
So,
kind of thing that can be automated more and more over time with
oh yeah,
AI?
yeah, yeah. And there's clearly there has been automation before, but now, for example, for muscle deformation, we call it, or I'm wearing a shirt, so the shirt also is deforming a little bit as I'm moving. There are things now that we can do with machine learning to predict what the deformation is. And that is actually a lot faster than traditional methods, which were much more analytical. So you're using math and formulas to try to predict what this looks like. But there's a lot of issues with that. It's very slow, and also the math isn't perfect, so it makes there's a tolerance of precision here, and the more complex the movement gets, the more this error accumulates,
Mhm.
and machine learning removes all of that. So
Amazing.
basically, we have, like, if we need to simulate how, like, my shirt deforms as people move, it's very easy now. Well, not very easier, but it's much easier now than it used to be. We just get, an actor or maybe one of our employees in wearing a shirt, and we go like this, all these different movements, and we have a machine learn. Oh, cool, this is how a shirt
Interesting.
deforms. So we don't have to analytically understand anymore how this works.
So it's interesting. It sounds, this is my hope, so you can confirm or deny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It would be my hope that you have these amazing artists whose lives are made easier by taking
Yeah.
over the
Oh, yeah.
toil, right?
Mhm.
And that's where I'd love to see it go. Getting, letting the smartest and most creative people focus on the most interesting stuff. That's where we'd like to go. There's a whole other conversation around privacy, around copyright.
Yeah,
I'm not very well educated in that whole conversation. I know it was a
yeah,
big part of the strike, but from
yeah.
your perspective, how should we be thinking about privacy in this world of these incredible digital twins?
So I will just talk about our business very specifically here, because at the end of the day, there is clearly a concern out there. We're all using generative AI now in our daily lives. We primarily use it for things like ideation. So, sometimes a client has a hard time articulating what they're looking for in terms of what they want, a digital asset to look like, an environment, let's say a building or a character or something like that. And what we're doing now is we sometimes just use, generative AI, for image generation to just come up with ideas.
Right.
And then go bring that back to the client and say, are you looking for something more like, A, B, or C? And then we can iterate a lot faster than we used to with these ideas. And also it's a really good communication tool. But
Hmm.
obviously the question there is, okay, let's say we're using uh, Stable Diffusion or Midjourney or something like that. They all have been trained. The
That's
underlying
yeah.
model that they're using has been trained on training data, and um, there's an open question right now that they're clearly a lot of these models, have leveraged copyrighted data, to create the model, because you need so much data. The more data is in your model, the richer it becomes, and the more meaningful and the more productive it's going to be if you use it. But and that's a pending question which has not been resolved, is whether you can or cannot use copyrighted work as you're training your model. Uh,
Hmm.
there's uh, there's several lawsuits pending, and there's several decisions that the Copyright Office honestly hasn't really ruled on yet. So that one we need to wait and how that works out. But when it comes to what the strike was about, especially the actors, that was a lot about, um, can we take an actor's likeness, scan them and make a digital double of an actor, and then use that digital double in perpetuity and
Hmm.
compensate the actor only once for this one session. That was, I think, the key point, and I think the union did a really good job articulating this and actually getting a result that works for the industry. And I think the result that they came up with is, for a place like us, is very much business as usual. So
Right.
we contracted by a client. Okay, we're creating a digital likeness of Josh Brolin here, for example, for Thanos, and for us, it's very clear the IP of Thanos is owned by Disney,
Hmm.
Marvel, and we can't use it on a Sony Pictures project all of a sudden.
Right.
We don't have the rights. There's a very strict relationship between us and our clients, and it specifies those rights. And I think the SAG-AFTRA agreement actually also codified this in a more general sense. So if you're an actor and you get your digital likeness created, scanned,
Hmm.
uh, the first time this gets done, they need to get your consent. They need to tell you what this is for, what the purpose, the use, what you're going to use it for, this data, and they need to compensate you for that use. If you then, and that's for a particular show. If you then later on want to take that same digital likeness of Tom Hanks, for example, and want to use it in a different movie, you have to again get Tom Hanks's consent. You have to tell him what it's for,
Yeah.
and you have to compensate him.
I'm, as I said, I work with like a lot of data and privacy, like packaged like packages of data, like a social security number in my world. And so like my
Yeah.
question would be, if I went ahead and just used Tom Hanks or some person, yeah, copywritten image, how would that person ever find out if I was misusing it?
So yeah, and that is the much bigger problem. So I think, and that was kind of my point, is that in an environment like ours, in the studio system where we have, professionals and businesses, making contracts and deals, and there's a specific purpose. We want to create this particular show. We want this particular actor. That's all controlled. And I think all what the SAG-AFTRA negotiation yielded was a better understanding of how we're going to use
That's right.
generative AI in our ecosystem. But you're totally right. I think the much bigger concern is unauthorized use. And that
Right.
again is that's an open question, and there are tools out there today that supposedly can tell whether this is fake or real. But make the test with real humans. Right now, I'm looking at you. I'm pretty sure that this is real. This is not fake. But um, if you, especially with still images, we see that quite a bit where it's not that easy to tell nowadays whether this is real or not real. And I think even with moving video, the quality of some of these deepfakes has already gotten very good and clearly, convincing for a lot of lay people. But we'll get to a point where it's going to be indistinguishable from the real thing, even for experts or for people that actually know this person relatively well. And so, and by the way, there's also on the flip side, there are use cases where you actually do want a very accurate representation of a real human being. And again, this starts with digital doubles that we're creating here. The better we can replicate, what Tom Hanks looks like in real life, the better we can use him as a digital stunt double and make
That's
him
right.
do crazy things that he would never dream of doing in the real world. And so there's these opposing kind of uh, you know, uh,
There's like the tension between the worries and the
yeah.
opportunities.
So there's yeah, yes, and so we need to actually figure out how to you know how to really authenticate content better. But that's been a problem for a while. I think
Right.
there's been a ton of fake news already out there before.
Yeah, I think for what you do too, I mean, I think the ability to, we'll figure it out. We haven't yet, but this ability to understand, put it like a thumbprint or some way to understand when, a copywritten image or copy of myself is being reused, that really will unblock a ton of innovation, right? Because people will really be able to take it as far as they want. As you can see, I'm an enthusiast. My P doom is
That's
very
okay.
low.
That's great. No, and by the way, there are, when I was at 20th Century Fox, for example, or even before then, I worked at DirecTV. So cryptography, and content protection, and that sort of thing always has been one of the elements of my job. And so from that, I know actually there are a number of cryptographic technologies and tools out there today that could really help, protect, people's works. I actually think, I know NFTs have gotten a really bad rap with, people buying, pixelated images of total crap for $1 million. But I think fundamentally from a cryptographic, viewpoint, and NFTs are great to prove ownership for digital,
I agree.
for a
I
piece of
think,
digital data. And
yeah,
so if you can prove ownership, you can also use it to prove authenticity. If you have a video of Joe Biden and he's saying something, but it comes with, his NFT associated with it, which you can verify, that it's his, and that the video wasn't altered, then you can kind of believe that this was really him. There are clearly, technical solutions for this. I think what we really need though is like an ecosystem that supports all this. So for example, that a lay like in your browser, that type of NFT support is actually automatically available, that there's like a little thing that goes on, okay, that there's an NFT and I've checked that it's actually Joe Biden's NFT because I could go back to the
like
to
a
the
like a wallet for trust.
server.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like the thing is that this type of authentication, the problem is that you have to go all the way back to some form of a root of trust at the end of the day. But
But
that,
Web3 could offer you a distributed version of trust that is least, palatable and easily accessed. We're kind of coming up to the end here and we're on a
yeah,
good theme, which is,
yeah,
as you're looking forward for digital domain, for the things
mhm,
that you know best,
yeah,
what are you excited about when you think about we talked about what's true today and kind of in the near
yeah,
term, but when you look
yeah.
forward, what are you getting excited about in the AI and data world?
Yeah, what I'm excited about, and I think it's the same thing that our artists here are excited about, is what you said earlier, actually, that we're really trying to use AI to, you know, make our artists' lives a lot simpler and easier, and have them really focus on what they want to focus on. They don't want to focus on how do I import this particular piece of data and how do I make this and that and the other thing happen. They want to think about, okay, here's what part of the storytelling do I want to do here, right? That's why I'm here. I mean, that's why artists are here. They want to create fancy characters. They want to be part of the storytelling process, and that's what we want to enable, to really kind of remove the underlying kind of technical grunt work that we all need to do to get to a point.
It's
And
exciting. Yeah. To get rid of that grunt work is pretty exciting. Sorry, I didn't
yeah,
mean to interrupt you. I didn't mean to
and
interrupt.
it'll also enable people to do things that they wouldn't normally do, or would have taken a long time for them to learn. Like I have a perfect example with myself. So I have not written code in like 20 years, but now with generative AI and all that, so I have a little zoo of, large language models on my PC at home, and so you need there's the way to interact with them is through, a Python framework. And so I had to relearn how to use Python. And if I would have done this all by hand, reading books or reading intro, tutorials on the internet or watching videos, this would have taken me weeks. But I've
Right.
got my Python environment over here, and I've got ChatGPT over here, and I'm just asking, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I, deal with the transformers library and this and that and the other thing? And it knows it all. And
Right.
I was in business in an hour. I was talking to this model. I mean,
It
that
lets you
that's
really
the
move,
type of
like
stuff.
you already had the smarts. You already had the smarts, and it just helps you get access to it faster,
Much
right?
faster. I'm not wasting time on stuff that somebody else has already, invented for me.
Right. That's interesting.
So,
So that brings me to my last question, which you may
yeah,
have already answered. But if you
yeah.
were advising one of these creators or artists who's trying to get into
Mhm.
motion picture, television world, what would you tell them they absolutely should be learning right now?
Well, right now, learn how to use generative AI tools. I don't remember who exactly said it, but pretty rock solid now. I think is that AI is not going to take your job. somebody using AI will take your job. That's really what this is, and I think that's what we all need to do is learn how to use it, because otherwise somebody else will, and they will be faster and more efficient than you are.
Amazing to get a chance to pull up with you. We definitely have such broad experience, deep experience in this industry. We could do 2 more podcasts, no problem.
Absolutely. Let me know when, yeah.
It's really great to connect with you and learn a little bit more about digital domain. Thank you so much, Hanno.